All right, I want to tell you this little story about that has to do with forgiveness. Something that happened to me last week. Um, so because I think it'll demonstrate a little bit how this works. So okay, so if you're a regular here, I talk about how I grew up in an abusive home within an emotionally abusive, religious, narcissistic mother. So I talk about that sometimes. And so in my life, in my particular situation, this has been by far the greatest forgiveness struggle of my whole life, to work through forgiveness, to come to a place where I forgive my mother for the way she treated me and treated my brother and treated my dad as me and my brother were growing up. And this has been so hard. And I've worked on it for years and years and years. And so in a lot of this time, so 54 of these years, I was still in a relationship, trying to have a relationship with my mother. And so, yeah, when I was a kid, I went through a lot of rebellious years where I would be really mean to her, and I would lash out at her and treated her very, very meanly. And then when I started following Jesus, decades ago now, I apologized to her over and over and over again, and I changed my behavior. And from that point on, tried with everything in me to treat her respectfully, and tried to have a relationship with her. Now, she's this narcissistic thing. A lot of you have dealt with narcissists, so you know how it works. They don't recognize that they have done anything wrong, and so she has never. I'm always the bad guy. So she would accept my apologies, of course, but there's never any kind of reciprocation there. So when I'm talking about emotional abuse, I'm just meaning, because this has continued into adulthood. So even into my 50s, as I had been trying to continue having a relationship with her. So when I say emotional abuse, what I'm talking about is just this constant barrage of just hyper criticism, just everything about me, everything that I do, everything I say, everything I wear, what I eat, what I think, everything is wrong. And so it's just constant criticism. And so usually after I was following God and trying to, be respectful, the way this would look is I would just bite my tongue. So when we were together, I would just bite my tongue, and I'd just be like, okay, mom, okay. That's just the way it would go. Every once in a while, I'd screw up, and I would just, I just couldn't stand it anymore. And I would, kind of blow up, and then I would feel terrible. And then I would immediately, I'm so sorry, I shouldn't have said that. I'd been taught by her to blame myself. And so people who grow up like I do, like I did, and I'm sure a lot of you, this sounds familiar to you. We struggle with guilt a lot because that's drummed into us. You're always wrong. So anyway, so this just continued. And so I tried a few times to very respectfully talk to her about this. And, the way you treat me and the way you treat my brother, it's really hurtful, and then, but that narcissist thing would kick in, and she would immediately get defensive and, accuse me of attacking her. And, so there was never any chance for resolution. There was just never any chance, and so I even wrote like this long letter, just very, very respectful, prayed over it, showed it to friends, had Christian friends pray over, same thing, she just yelled at me and, how dare you attack me? And, so finally, 3 years ago, God himself told me, just sever the relationship. Just get her out of remove her from your life. And then I struggled with that. I'm like, how can that be okay, God? So finally, though, what I have seen over these past 3 years, and he confirmed it hundreds and hundreds of ways, and I don't know if it's going to be forever, but what I have seen over these past 3 years is that has allowed me to really get healing and to really work through this, because now it stopped the abuse. Because before I was trying to get healing and forgiveness while I was still being abused. It was just continuous. So it was one of those situations with shake the dust off your feet. Unfortunate, but that's what it was. And so anyway, here is the story. Here's what happened last week. So a Saturday morning. So we've got a wedding upcoming in the family. And so this is in April. And so I'm actually going to see her for the very first time, probably, I think she's going to be there in years. So 3 years. It'll be almost 4. Yeah, it'll be 3 years exactly. And I'm going to see her again. And so I had gotten to this place where I feel forgiveness. I can think about her. I don't get mad. I even feel, the love of Christ for her. It's not, ever going to be a fuzzy, warm feeling, like my mom is my best friend kind of feeling. But, I got to the point where I really, can feel this compassion, And so after I realized, oh my goodness, I'm going to see her, all of these unforgiveness feelings started flooding back into me, and that's just been this past couple of weeks. And at first I was surprised. I was like, wait a minute, I got over this. What's going on? So I start going through the process again. I'm giving it to God, got to get my flesh back into submission. I got to get back to that place of forgiveness, giving it back to God, giving it back to God. And it has just been this huge struggle. And so on Saturday morning, I was praying, and these feelings started coming up. So I'm immediately just, I refuse to sit in it. So I give it to God. No, God, I'm not going to feel this way. God, take it away from me. I forgive. I choose to forgive. And then all of a sudden, this feeling of hatred started floating into my mind. And now I struggled for a while years ago with hatred for my mother. I mean, just hatred. And I worked really hard, and that has not been a problem for years. So when that came in Saturday morning, I immediately recognized it, and I'm like, whoa. And I was in the middle of praying, and so I just threw my hands up, and I'm like, God, what do I have to do? I have been working on this for years. I choose to forgive. Why is this in here? I don't want to feel, I'm just whining, I'm just, God, please help me. What do I do? And then when I finally was quiet, God responded. And he said quietly, what have I been teaching you about angels? I will explain what he meant. Because when he told me that, I'm like, oh my goodness. And this light bulb popped on in my head. Ding! I'm like, oh my goodness. Okay, here's what God's been teaching me about angels. So angels, so he's been teaching me over the past, so this if you follow my podcast, God allows me to see angels often. I have lots of experiences, interactions with angels. And so over the past 5 years that God has started allowing me to see angels more and more, something I have learned is that there are lots of different kinds of angels. They are made for different kinds of purposes. And now there is biblical foundation for this, because in the Bible, we see archangels, we see cherubim, seraphim, we see worshiping angels, ministering angels, messenger angels, warrior angels. We see all these different kinds of angels, right? And in my own personal experience, I have seen other kinds of angels, forgiveness angels, joy angels, healing angels, all different kinds of angels, communion angels. And so anyway, remember, demons are fallen angels. So what we see in the angelic world, all of these different kinds of angels that are made for specific purposes. Well, it's the same thing, very similar in the demonic world, only it's a fallen, corrupted version of it. So just as angels have specific purposes, demons do too. And now I knew this before, but it never occurred to me that that's what I was dealing with. Because you see, I was thinking and fighting this as if all that unforgiveness that I was feeling welling up in my soul over the past couple of weeks, I was fighting that as if it were me, as if it was still my flesh that I was working to bring into submission to forgiveness. So, but I did work through all that stuff. What I was dealing with these past couple of weeks was demons. It was a demonic attack. And once I realized that, then that's nothing. I mean, through the blood of Jesus Christ, I rebuke you. And it was two specific demons. It was a demon of unforgiveness and a demon of hatred. And so I called them by names: demon of unforgiveness, demon of hatred, by the power of the blood of Jesus. Shut your mouth and get out of here. And you know what? They left. They had to leave immediately, and they haven't come back. And if they come back, now I know how to fight them. And now I'll recognize them. Because you know what? Demons, when they bother you, they do not want you to know that they are there. They want you to think that it is you. And that way you're battling yourself, and you're not battling them the way that you need to battle them, using a powerful spiritual warfare prayer that they must obey. Okay? So the reason why I wanted to tell you this story is because I want to show you some of the ways that this can kind of play out. So it's not always a demon. Okay? It's not always a demon. A lot of times it's your flesh, and you got to get that flesh into, it's very human. very human nature. It is our fallen nature to, when somebody hurts us, to want to get revenge, to be unforgiving. Okay. And so you got to take care of that first. But if you really do the work, like I have done for years, I have forgiven. I don't have hatred for her. I love her with the love of Christ. I want her to get deliverance. I don't want bad things to happen to her, you know? And so when you have done that, and then these kinds of things come back and you're being harassed, it could very well be a demonic attack. And so anyway, and now I've got these tools. And so I know that, you know, I really have gotten where I need to be in my own flesh. And so I know how to fight it if it comes back.